Okay, these 12th grade students are engaged in a challenge. Design and construct a bridge that spans 8 inches. They're given limited amount of time and materials, and the test has one question. How many pennies can your bridge hold? One thing to notice about this photo is that no one in it knows the answer to that question, and the teacher is in the photo. So through experimentation and discussion, they construct a multifaceted view of their learning and their experience. And I think that's a pretty good model for us adults. So my name is Tim McNamara. I'm director of High Tech High Chula Vista. And I've been asked to give you a virtual tour and some sense of what our school is all about. And I'm happy to do that and talk about our school with pride. But I just want to suggest that no one in here really knows the answer to the question, what should a school look and feel like? And that I'd like to suggest that we draw inspiration from this model of discovery. So High Tech High Chula Vista sits 8 miles from the US-Mexico border. And I took this photo of a Border Patrol helicopter surveying the canyon south of our school one night. There it is. The richness of this binational environment is matched by our natural setting, and it's complicated by the quasi-militarization. But our mission is clear: graduate students who are college, civic, and career ready. About 600 students attend our high school, and over half come from economically disadvantaged families. About 99% of our students graduate eligible to be accepted to the University of California, and compared with 45% statewide. Students are not tracked or sorted by ability level at our school. So High Tech High has 4 design principles. Equity is one of them, and I'll say more about it later, but I wanted to highlight the last sentence of this design principle, which talks about getting students to and through a 4-year college. So how do we go about doing that? Everybody knows that to prepare kids for college, you should have them sit in lengthy lectures, take notes, devour wide swaths of academic content, take tests, binge drink, get a tattoo, etc., and they'll succeed in college. Okay, but everybody else also knows that, on the other hand, students do better when they're engaged in their work. They're creating things for outside audiences, and they're allowed to do field work. They use a variety of tools. They're working in groups, and they're discovering their own passions. And everybody knows that everybody else is wrong. So how do we, this is an impossible dilemma, how to best prepare kids for college. And if it's familiar to you, I can't describe how you should do it, but I wanted to let you know how we do it, which is we give this dilemma as a gift to our teachers and empower them with the ability to innovate and try and tinker. And that's how we bridge our students to college. So I'm going to launch a discussion of curriculum with a short video created by a High Tech High founding teacher. I think. Next slide, please.
Andrew is a 10th grade chemistry teacher. One day he mixed up some hydrogen using magnesium and citric acid. His balloon filled up. This gave him an idea. His students could fill balloons with different gases, and that would be an authentic introduction to understanding elements by making and doing. Kelly, a 12th grade English teacher, read Unbroken over the summer. She thought, what a great idea for a project. She went and interviewed a woman that had survived a horrible accident. She discovered that there was an interesting physics component to survival. Kelly then introduced this idea to her physics teaching partner, and that started the Science of Survival project. Brian, a 9th grade physics teacher, was out with his young son looking at the stars, taking a few pictures. Came in the next day to show his class, and at that moment the Astrophysics and Astrophotography Club started, and that was a great idea for a class project. All of these projects started with a teacher doing something. I want to do a project directed by math, and having built houses in a former career, I knew that staircases are the most math-heavy part of a house. I remember seeing a model staircase exhibition, and I thought that would be fun. I cut up some blocks and tried it myself. I then asked a real carpenter how it's done. Andrew, a physics teacher, joined me, and we built model staircases to scale. We did something. Then I worked out how I would get the students to build model staircases. Each student will build a 1 to 10 scale staircase. Teams of 2 would design and then build a 1 to 5 scale model. Teams of 10 would build a 1 to 1 staircase to nowhere around the school. They would learn to plan, make, authentically use trig and physics, and add to the community. There are just a few steps to project-based learning. Do something. Create deliverables. Have the students make the deliverables. Exhibit their work. Remember, those who teach well do.
Okay, easy, right? Just do something. I want to add a little to that and just suggest that our curriculum tends to emerge out of the overlap between teacher passions, the competencies and skills that we want our students to have, the core of the discipline, and also student interests. So a closer look at one project will hopefully show how this works. So one of our teachers became obsessed with tiny houses because she couldn't afford to live in San Diego, and she started doing all this Googling, and in the meantime she met a community partner who happened to run a nonprofit that was also interested in building tiny houses for artists so they could stay in San Diego. And out of that combined passion, the project was born. So the Tiny Houses project really taps into the core of the humanities and engineering. If you think about it, the first engineers in the world, the first human engineers, were the builders of tiny homes, probably. And the homes that they were able to build created a space and time for the storytellers of the tribe to sublimate all the dreams and desires and fears and create the myths that propelled and built that culture. So in the Tiny House Project, students interviewed artists for whom they were designing and learned not only about their housing requirements, but also about their lives, their struggles, and the stories they wanted to tell through their art. The work of the project had students puzzling out answers to small, important questions, such as, how long should I cut this 2x4? And should we use aluminum or wood siding? And also gaining insight into bigger questions as well. How much is enough? How can we design homes, cities, and neighborhoods more suitable for human beings? Am I an artist or an engineer? Can I be both? So in terms of skills and competencies, when the teachers are planning the project, they think about what they want their students to know and be able to do. In this case, they wanted students to master Newton's laws, basic circuits and electrical wiring, persuasive and creative writing, and a whole host of other things, including collaborating effectively, navigating group conflicts, learning how to learn by trying out new tools, and also conducting independent research. So here, in this photo, students are presenting their tiny house design to this audience of the nonprofit executives. And that's me on the left taking a photo, and I can tell you this was a deadly serious experience. Taking students' interests into account doesn't mean that every project has to be about Beyonce or Snapchat. All students have an interest in being taken seriously. And also in designing and building and storytelling and in working in groups. So taking students seriously is the first step. As is also the case, every human has their own particular interests, so teachers can do their best to try to smuggle those into the project that they're working on. So I want to end the curriculum section with some of our students in action on a different project. This is another brief video clip.
High-Tech High Chula Vista connects the mind and the hand by using project-based learning. HTHCV students have the opportunity to affect change in their communities, families, and within themselves. We are doers, dreamers, and thinkers who are poised to ask big questions and make an impact in an ever-changing world.
The Revision Project is a consultation and design firm run by 50 students and 2 teachers. We seek to reimagine locations, products, and experiences using the human-centered design process.
Based at High-Tech High Chula Vista, the Revision Project strives to be a hub for civic and social innovation in the Chula Vista and San Diego regions. The Revision Project wants to make people aware of their power to initiate change and create alternative spaces in their communities. Our team members bring an interdisciplinary approach to complex problems and issues.
And then what we'll do is we'll walk down the street on that side.
The Third Avenue Revitalization Project is a series of programming that will come out of the Revision Lab. We will host specific projects in hopes of making Third Avenue and Chula Vista more welcoming for artists. Chula Vista is one of California's fastest growing cities, and the arts need to be brought out before they are buried. We want to make Third Avenue the Broadway of Chula Vista. We would host arts programming from the lab, where its influence would reach out to the businesses, shops, and venues on Third Avenue. By making design and visual arts accessible, we believe we will rejuvenate and revitalize the community. The impact we are hoping to see is a measurable change in the increase of visitors, business revenues and occupancies, and community events held on Third. Chula Vista is a blank canvas, and the Revision Project wants to animate the culture of Chula Vista through art. It is our mission to use our beliefs in social innovation and our tools in design to create place-making art in Third Avenue. By funding our project, you will create a facility for artists to bring arts to life in Chula Vista, a center in which its purpose is to capture Chula Vista's culture. Above all, you will assist youth make change happen in their community.
Okay, brief interlude about leadership. My mom likes to tell a story about me that goes as follows. When I was 4 or 5, we were out shopping and I had to go to the bathroom. And I was too old to go to the ladies' room with her, so she sent me into the men's room and said, "If anyone tries to grab you, scream as loud as you can." And I said to her, "Absolutely not, because if I scream, everyone will look at me." And my mom was certain that I would never grow up to have a job where I'd be looked at and listened to by strangers. But at High-Tech High Chula Vista, there is simply nowhere to hide. There's windows in every classroom, and work is made public. All voices are obliged to share their ideas, and everyone is a leader of their own learning. So luckily, I did not encounter this guy in the bathroom. The bathroom trip went fine. But as a school leader, I do lots of the typical things that you would think a principal would do, but there's something a little bit different that someone who did very well in school, but feel like I was miseducated. It's something that I relish, and that's preventing the establishment of policies and rules that will rise up like Frankenstein's monster and destroy us all. Or if not destroy us, at least prevent us from doing the work that we want to do, which is figuring out how to engage and educate our students and change the world. So visitors to our school sometimes struggle to see what is not there. So I've made a list for you. And you can see we try to get in the way of structures that could impede our ability to educate our students. And this addition by subtraction is what allows us to breathe. Okay, so in terms of our pedagogy, what is it? What's underneath all of this? Are we Freirests? Are we Deweyians? Are we constructivists? What are we? Well, unfortunately for you and for the folks who bought my plane ticket to come here, I have no idea. I'm a practitioner, not a theorist or a pedagogical academician. But what I can do is tell you what we do, and maybe during the question and answer you can tell me what we are. Because I think we're a combination of all these, or maybe we're none of them. I'm not sure. But when teachers join our school, we ask them to engage in an activity called the significant learning experience. That's when we ask them, from your school days, what was a significant learning experience? And we ask them to write it down, to share it with one another, and to discuss and try to find the common elements and also the divergences. And what we find again and again is there's common elements to significant learning experiences. And lost my place here. And here's what they are. There's learn by doing, there's engaging relevant open-ended questions, there's refinement, there's working in a team, there's creating a product of lasting value that you present publicly. So I want to give you some more information on each of these by looking through the lens of a particular 12th grade project that was a combination of theater and social justice. So in terms of learn by doing, in the upper right, you can see Angie and Mark on the stage that the three of us built the week before school started so that students could immediately learn to perform by performing. And the main picture on this slide is a student performing a poem on day 5 of school. So you don't wait until you get the basics down to start doing. Brief interlude here, just to let you know, if you're curious about our school schedule, we have 2 hours of humanities, we have an advisory period, lunch, 2 hours of science, an hour of math, and then an elective. All right, back to the project. As this project progressed, students continued to hone their acting skills, but they also studied and asked questions about the recent highly publicized police killings of innocent black men and the subsequent protests, arguments, and national crisis of conscience in the United States. The work also pushed students into the past, and they analyzed historical flashpoints of racism, injustice, and the civil rights movement. And then they started to create an original play based on their research. It just so happened they were doing most of this in a classroom, but they tackled these questions the exact way artists and historians and community leaders would. So by day 30, students are giving feedback to one another on their work. They're providing warm and cool feedback on the original scripts that they wrote in preparation for the performance. On days 71 and 72 of the project, students performed to a packed house their original play that combined historical scenes and original scripts. And along the way, they worked in groups. Projects tend to be a personal and a communal journey for each student. They worked in groups of 50 to produce the final play, groups of 4 on scene writing, groups of 2 on choreography, and individually on op-eds and essays. Here on day 20, the students create a tableau depicting what it feels like to read the news in the contemporary United States, which is, of course, different if you're Mexican, white, African-American, middle class, poor. And working in diverse groups, our students confront their own biases, utilize their strengths, and recognize the skills of others. So back to equity briefly. When we talk about equity, we're really talking about race and class and culture. And how people are treated based on race and class and culture, let's face it, is extremely unfair, to put it mildly. Another student from several years ago was tall, thin, and enigmatic, and he only smiled when hanging around his baseball buddies. And later in the first semester, he read me the essay he had written about his father's death and his fading memories of playing baseball together. There's absolutely nothing fair about him losing his father, but that's above my pay grade. His being Latino and male, and what that unfortunately often means in U.S. schools, is not. So when he finished reading, we hugged silently for a long time. And as a person who lost some years being quiet, I find it empowering to repeat at every opportunity that every student has a voice, deserves a platform, and must be met where they are at. So these are the faces he and the rest of my students looked out at as they performed comedy sketches later that year. Working toward equity involves giving all students a chance to shine. So how do we assess in our environment? Well, we've come up with a standardized multiple choice exam that perfectly quantifies the learning and growth of each student. I don't believe I have to tell you that I'm kidding. The cornerstone of our assessments are presentations of learning, where students dress professionally and present their work and evidence to a group of peers, teachers, and family members. Students can receive a grade of pass or not yet, and a grade of not yet requires a retry. Some students do this 4 or more times. Rather than say more about POLs, I'm going to show one now.
On the left, on the left is the CYOA book that we wrote, and I'm going to start off by talking what my job was. So when we started this project, my job was exhibition coordinator. So initially I didn't think that I would do anything related to the writing or anything to the book, but I ended up taking on a little more responsibility and becoming a managing editor. And I'm very thankful that I did that because I learned a lot about myself during that process. So I found myself taking on a little more responsibility, and I'm really happy that I did because I learned that the reason that people don't follow through with their work is because they feel like their work doesn't matter. And I saw myself not really like pushing people, but showing people how important their work was in the final outcome and why they should do their work and try their hardest to make this book that we wrote as best as they could.
Can you discuss specifically your growth as a historian during the Choose Your Own Adventure project?
As a historian, I think that as a historian I learned how to find first-hand accounts because I never really done first-hand accounts or looked for first-hand accounts. So I didn't really like books, so I went on the database and I looked up first-hand accounts there at the Southwestern College database. And then writing the annotated bibliographies kind of made that stuff seem real, I guess. Because I read it and I could understand it, but when I wrote it down, I kind of was like showing what I'd learned. So I felt that the annotated bibliographies really made it feel real. It made it feel what I had read matter.
You said that you brought a positive attitude. Well, that was one of your goals. Can you give an example of a time where you use your attitude to kind of build up the class or move the class forward or kind of keep the class going on a difficult project?
This is kind of a hard question, but I think that one time was during the CYOA book when we were all stressing that last week before internship. Yeah. And I think Gustavo kind of lost his mind during that week because he was doing other stuff, and I kind of had to rally the group that was doing the layout, and it was hard at first because everybody was just done with it. We're going off to internships next week, we don't want to do anything. So everybody was just like, yeah, kind of robot mode, just like clicking on a computer, you know, kind of doing their thing, going really slow and talking to people. And I had to go and talk to several people. None of them are here. I think I talked to Serena a couple times, but I felt like people were going to do their work, but they weren't going to do it as well as they could. So I had to go and be like, oh, you know, this is really cool that you're talking and all, that you want to leave, but it's also cool that we get a book done before we leave. So it was just more or less giving the people the encouragement to continue, being like telling them why their work is relevant. Being like, you're responsible for this story. I really, really would appreciate it if you would get it done. But more than me appreciating it, it's more important that you feel that you matter. You can see your book done because you did the layout. And if you don't do the layout, then it might not get done. So I think that giving people the reality, but then also showing them why it's relevant and why it matters. That's what I did.
Okay, a couple more words about assessment. A habit of ours at our school is to, after any experience or activity, to have this 3-2Q cycle, we call it, which is 3 celebrations, 2 growth areas, and a wondering or a question. And we all do this, teachers, students, directors. It starts with me. So I solicited feedback from my staff in December and then shared back my 3-2Q. And I highlighted in red part of this. And it's not translated, but what it says is that I'll work on understanding the strengths of our teachers and effectively communicating and sharing those strengths with internal and external audiences. And that's one of my growth areas. So I've gone to rather extraordinary lengths to address that growth area by talking to you all today, half a continent away from my home. But the point is that all of us engage in this cycle, and it serves to level the playing field. So we have some processes and tools that teachers use. We do project tunings where teachers present their ideas and get feedback. We consult on dilemmas. We do a Shark Tank protocol, which is not as scary as it might sound. It's where we design for that student who is usually disengaged and really try to maximize the project's opportunities to engage that particular student. But I think the rhythm that's most pervasive at our school is asking ourselves and our students what we want and how we can help each other in getting it. So I'm going to close with 4 more questions that may be useful for your work. So what brings you joy? It could be dressing up like a hippie or painting a classroom wall to look like bricks. Roasting your dean. I can't repeat any of the jokes here that we used during that roast. Playing giant Jenga or sit-down volleyball. I think that the heavy lifting we do as educators requires a bit of lightness and fun. And of course, the work should be joyful too. These students are actually going out to pick up fresh roadkill, and I wonder if they should be smiling as much as they are. But they're really excited because they're studying the human impacts on wildlife, and they really got into the project. Also ask, what do you want to make? Do you want to make rockets or conversation coffee houses or artist colonies? Do you want to make Potemkin villages for an immersive theater experience? Podcasts, conceptual art? Ask, how do you want to be assessed? So this is teachers asking students that question. And here's a panel of professional chefs eating food that was created by students. And they were all healthy afterwards, amazingly enough. And then ask, what are your dreams? Leslie wanted a mobile classroom, and she found that 28 folding chairs could fit into a 4x4 cube. I want to work in a school that doesn't look like a school. And these are our students. They dream of going to college, so we bring them there and ask them how it feels. So asking these questions helps us build our bridges, and you all have been very gracious, and I thank you very much.